The Fundamental Five, Chapter 8, New Beginnings. Though there is no question that the 5 practices presented in this book are not new, the better understanding of their individual power and the discovery of their power when implemented as a cohesive unit represents a new beginning for effective instruction. Instead of waiting for the next new program or fearing the encroachment of increasing accountability standards, coupled with increasing class size and decreasing resources, teachers have at their disposal the skill set to have their students exceed expectations on a consistent basis. E. Don Brown, Personal Communication, June 2010, a former president of the National Association of Secondary School Principals and one of the architects of Breaking Ranks, 1996, believes that if teachers would harness the power that the Fundamental Five provides them in the classroom, many of the problems that they face in terms of student motivation, behavior, and academic performance would quickly become areas of strength. This might seem to be an endorsement that borders on hyperbole until one sees the data from campuses that have adopted the Fundamental Five as a core instructional framework. Below is just a small sample of the early performance data that is being collected. Do know that the authors are not claiming that the Fundamental Five is the only reason for changes in the data. However, on all of the campuses presented below, the most significant change between the first set of collected data and the second set of collected data is Fundamental Five staff training coupled with a focus on increasing the frequency of the use of the Fundamental Five practices in the classroom. Early performance data. Haregrove Elementary is an urban campus in Houston, Texas. The campus serves approximately 925 students in grades pre-K to 5. Critical demographic information is listed in the chart below. Student group, we got African Americans at just over 8.3%, Hispanics 78.3%, white 9.8%, Native American 0%, Asian Pacific Islander 3.5%, economically disadvantaged, limited English proficient, and their corresponding percentages, which were LEP was 49.8, ECODIS 79.8, Asian Pacific Islander 3.5. The overall pass rates for Haregrove Elementary students on the annual State Accountability Test, TAKS, before and after the staff were trained on the use of Fundamental Five practices of effective instruction are listed in the chart below. I've got the 2009, the tested subject, the year of the passing rate, the next year passing rate, and the change. So all of these are plus changes. Additionally, some are pretty high to begin with. 93 to 98. For example, Lee Elementary School is an urban campus in Houston, Texas. The campus serves approximately 1,175 students in pre-K to 5. Critical demographic information is listed below. All right. The overall passing rates for Lee Elementary students on the annual State Accountability Test, TAKS, before and after the staff were trained on the use of Fundamental Five practices of effective instruction are listed in the chart below. Again, gains. In the late spring of 2010, Midland Independent School District, a large urban district in Texas, decided that the staff of its 4 junior high schools and 2 freshman schools will be trained on the use of Fundamental Five instructional practices beginning in the fall 2010 semester. Critical demographic information is listed below. There's the table. To gauge the effectiveness of the staff training, baseline classroom observation data was collected through the use of the PowerWalks instructional observation system during April and May 2010. Teachers and administrators received training on the Fundamental Five practices during the months of September and October 2010. Classroom observation data from the month of November 2010 were collected to determine the effect of the Fundamental 5 training on teacher practice. The graph below shows the change in the frequency of observed use of the Fundamental 5 practices in participating secondary school classrooms. Okay, this is graph 8.1, the Kane-Leonard Fundamental 5. The dark bar will be the May 2010, and the lighter gray mark will be the November 2010. Okay. Point about that bar is that in May of 2010 there were 147 observations, and in November 2010 there were 985 observations. So far greater were the observations in the fall of 2010, and still at least significantly demonstrated the increased use of the Fundamental 5. In addition to the collection of data on the use of the Fundamental 5 instructional practices, data were collected on the rigor and relevance of the observed instruction. The graph below illustrates the change in observed rigor and relevance of typical instruction in secondary classrooms. There's a table, and it shows the direction with which the change was occurring from the gray square to the darker gray diamond as it moved up higher on Bloom's taxonomy. Yeah. Okay, it must be stressed that correlation is not causation, meaning there are both factors, both visible and invisible, that can also be driving the positive changes documented in the data above. But the dramatic and rapid improvement in both student performance and adult practice that is being observed in the field at scale and diverse and even adverse academic settings that followed the introduction of the Fundamental 5 is exciting. The promise of better teaching and improved learning, which many naysayers seem to believe is empty, is in fact well within our means. Leading and lagging indicators. As one embarks on the journey to improvement, the Fundamental 5 on a campus or in a classroom, there will be difficulties that one will have to overcome, and at times one could even begin to feel somewhat overwhelmed. This is not unusual. The changing of personal habits and practices is difficult, but one must push through the tough part. When looking at school improvement, it is the change in adult behavior that is the leading indicator. The change in student performance is the lagging indicator. It is the extended exposure to the improvements in adult practice that drives the improvement in student performance. If by objective measure, for example, the data provided by PowerWalks, adult practice is improving, one can be confident that improved student academic performance will follow. The search for the next program in which to plug in those students is at best a short-term response, which only buys time to potentially solve the core problems. To actually solve the core problems of education requires the most adaptable, engaging, and creative tool at our disposal. The classroom teacher. It is a classroom teacher who focuses on the fundamentals, works at the fundamentals, and executes the fundamentals with increasing frequency and quality that will lead entire classrooms of students to the uncharted territory of sustained high rigor / high relevance instruction. In closing, the effect that each of the Fundamental 5 practices has in the classroom. Framing the lesson has a positive impact on instructional planning and delivery and improves student retention of the content. Working in the power zone improves both student discipline and on-task behavior. The use of frequent small group purposeful talk about the learning can increase both the rigor and relevance of classroom instruction and improve student retention of the content. Recognition and reinforcement improve both student performance and student behavior. Writing critically increases the rigor and relevance of classroom instruction, improves student retention of the content, and improves student literacy skills. Executed as a cohesive unit, the Fundamental 5 improves the quality of classroom instruction, improves student behavior, and improves student retention of the presented material. All that is required to successfully implement these 5 practices is teacher awareness and teacher willingness to improve. Think, work, achieve.